Hi everyone, my name is Adam and I'm a property consultant, transaction advisor, and CEO of Mr. T Real Estate Sri Lanka. And today I'm here to talk about the renting of apartments. I'm here to talk about how apartment rentals work, and I want to give you some tips, some pointers, some things you need to be aware of when renting your apartment. So if you're somebody who is a landlord, a property owner, a person who has bought an apartment, or you're somebody who is going to buy an apartment, this video is going to be really important for you. So the first thing I want to talk about is the two types of rentals we get when it comes to renting an apartment. You get short-term rentals and you get long-term rentals. Now, short-term rentals are from one day to a few days to a week to a few weeks to even a month can be considered short term. A long term rental, on the other hand, is something that is anything from 6 months to 1 year to 2 years to 3 years to 5 years. It can be for a very long period of time. Both have their pros and cons. For example, when it comes to short term rentals, you have to completely furnish the property. You have to put in all the white goods. You have to put in the cutlery, crockery, meaning cups, plates, spoons, pots, all kinds of things. You have to put in the linen. You have to also give internet, and you have to give free electricity. You have to give free water, and you have to provide linen changing. All this come into play for a short-term rental. On the other hand, when it comes to a long-term rental, you don't have a lot to do, but you have very little work. You have to just set everything up. Tenant would pay the utility bills, and that's it. You have a long-term contract, one agreement, and you get your rent in bulk, or sometimes you get it in pieces, quarterly, biannually, or even monthly. Now, how do you figure out which is the better option? How do you assess whether you should go for a short term rental option or whether you should go for a long term rental option? So, here's one thing you can think about. When you're doing short term rentals, it's very seasonal, it's very season based. There is a peak time and there is a non peak time. And you may end up making a larger profit, but the workload is very high. You may have to hire somebody to manage, to look into all the little things on a daily basis, because many people will come inside a period of 1 year to stay in the flat. And in the process, there may be quite a bit of wear and tear in the flat. If you take the long term rental process, you have one or two people throughout the entire period. So you have some security inside, you have peace of mind, you know somebody is looking after your place, and you don't have a lot of things to do. Whereas with short term, the amount of money you make might be slightly higher, but the hassle free option is the long term option. You also have the option of outsourcing the entire management to a company that can do the short legs. But in Sri Lanka, it's a bit difficult to monitor, to supervise, and to check if things are done right. My advice to you would be, if you are spending millions and buying an apartment, go for the long term option. So I'll take you through some things you need to know when it comes to the long term option. So you have bought an apartment, or you have an apartment which is there and you plan to rent it out. The first thing you need to ask yourself is, am I going to rent this out with the furniture or without the furniture? Am I going to put in all the items you need to be called a furnished apartment, or are you going to give it out as it is without any furniture? A few pros and cons again. When you give it out without furniture, you have less hassle. You don't have to worry about shampooing your sofa. You don't have to worry about sending your curtains for washing. You don't have to worry about servicing every little item in the apartment, from polishing the wooden furniture to all kinds of little things. If you are giving it unfurnished, all you have to worry about is nice paint job, a deep cleanup, and that's it. If you have wooden flooring, then you may have to treat the wood. Other than that, it's a simple job. Colombo has a lot of apartments. A good 80 to 90% of these apartments are furnished. So if you're watching this video now and if you're planning to buy an apartment or have an apartment now which is unfurnished, my advice to you would be to see if you can find a client as it is. Don't spend money on furniture, because you never know what kind of client will come and what kind of client will want what kind of furniture. Some clients have different taste. You might buy furniture from one place and furnish the apartment, and when clients come, they may say, "Oh, we don't like the furniture." Then you're in a bit of a fix. Unless you're somebody who's very flexible to remove whatever they don't want and replace it with better things or with things they like. So if you have an apartment and if it is unfurnished, leave it as it is. Take it by ear. See how you go for a week or for a few weeks, maybe a month, and then assess if you need to furnish it or not. If you are planning to furnish it, do consult an architect or an interior designer. If you have the financial capability of getting an interior designer to do the whole thing, then do it by all means. You should not compromise when you're furnishing your apartment. You have to make sure you give it every little thing that is there, from the curtains to the television to the coffee table to the dining table to the fridge. Size matters when renting. You have to make sure you're giving good, proper, high quality items. You don't want to give in a 32-inch TV. Go for a 42-inch, 45-inch, 55-inch TV. You don't want to do a single door fridge. You want to do the 4-door fridge, or in Sri Lanka as we call it, a double door fridge. These things add value. And these things will stop the tenant from negotiating the rate, because you know you have put in some really valuable things in the apartment, and these things are really going to be helpful for you when you get your rent and when you want to give it out to a client. Alright, so now we've thought about the furnishing part, the unfurnishing part. You decide on what you want to do. If you really want to furnish it or you want to give it out unfurnished, consult a real estate agent. Talk to the agent and ask whether you should furnish it or give it out unfurnished. See the pros and cons. There is not a big difference when it comes to the price of a furnished apartment and the price of an unfurnished apartment. When you do the math with the depreciating value in furnitures, sometimes you might feel it makes sense to just give it out unfurnished. So that part is sorted out. Now comes the part where you have decided whether you're giving it out with or without furniture, and now you're going to market the property. Few things you need to know before you market the property and before you tell your agent what to do, what not to do, who to bring, who not to bring as clients. The monthly maintenance charge, or the service charge, or the body corporate charge, or the management fee, all these terms are used in Sri Lanka. This particular fee is paid by the landlord. The owner of the apartment has to pay it. He or she has to pay it, not the tenant. Why should he or she pay it? Because it's decided by the committee. The tenant is not on the committee. You have to make sure you include this amount in the rent. Do not quote the rent without the management fee. It is an international phenomena that the management fee, the body corporate fee, the service charge is paid by the owner of the property. This is paid for security, for insurance, for garbage disposal, for lift maintenance, for generator maintenance, for the swimming pool maintenance, for all other common area maintenance purposes, such as if you have a rooftop, or if there's a garden, or if there's a gym, or if you have any other games rooms or business centers or any other cafes or restaurants operating within the apartment complex. Some apartment complexes here in Sri Lanka, we have a mini food city, we have a mini food mart, so it helps. So it's your responsibility as a property owner to pay the management fee. Do not ask the tenant to pay it, or do not tell the agent that it's without the management fee, because everywhere else it's included in the rent. That's one. Number two, when it comes to the agreement, when it comes to a client who has come to your apartment, seen the apartment, agreed on the payment terms, and they're ready to sign the agreement, you have to be quick. You have to get the agreement as fast as possible. Do that, but at the same time, you need to make sure you have some important clauses in the agreement. We see that sometimes these clauses are left out. Sometimes these clauses are missing. If you're renting your apartment for a period of 1 year, you need to have a minimum period of 6 months as a lock-in period. What do I mean by a lock-in period? When I say lock-in, I'm referring to a period where neither party can terminate the agreement. This is supposed to be a standard clause, but sadly we see a lot of landlords missing out on having this clause inserted in the agreement. If you're doing a 2-year agreement, the minimum lock-in period should be 1 year. Neither party can terminate the agreement for a year. Thereafter, the notice period can be 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months. That is subjective. That is depending on how negotiations go. Usually 3 months is advised. The other thing you need to also be worried about is the termination clause. Do not let your tenant walk away just like that by saying, "Oh, I'm giving you 3 months notice and I'm out of here." A termination clause is, we call it an early termination clause. If you have a 2-year contract or if you have a year's contract, and if the tenant wants to leave early, they have to give notice. But that's not good enough. You have paid the broker in full, you have paid the lawyer in full, you have paid other taxes, and here comes the tenant and says, agreement says 3 months notice, I'm out of here. No. We have learned from our very educated expats who come here that there should be a penalty clause. So when you're taking the refundable deposit, you need to make sure you deduct a certain amount from the refundable deposit as damages in the event of early termination. This is a clause we see a good 80 to 90% of apartment owners missing out on. Maybe they are not advising the lawyers to add it, maybe the lawyers are not aware of it. We don't know. But this has to be done if you are to have a risk-free agreement and risk-free dealing with the tenant. Right, so now we've covered up all these little things from the agreement to the types of rental to all of that. When you are showing the apartment to the client, you have to make sure there is absolutely no opportunity given to the client to complain. So when the apartment is put in the market for rent, you need to make sure it is in very good condition. You need to make sure there is no clutter in the apartment. You need to make sure there are no other unwanted items in the apartment, whether it is furnished or unfurnished. If a client is coming at 3 o'clock to see the apartment, and if you are going to the apartment to open it, you need to go at least 1 hour early, switch on the ACs, see if there's any dust collected anywhere, wipe it off, dust it off. If you are not doing that, if your agent is doing it, don't worry about it. Your agent already knows these things. This is why it's also important to let your agent handle it. Give the keys to the agent, let him do his job. They do it nicely. They know how to go to the apartment, switch it on, switch on the lights, switch on the ACs, switch on everything. So when the client walks in, it's beautiful, it's nice, it's presentable, and they like it. Remember, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. This applies in a lot of things. It also applies in life. It also applies in sales and marketing. When we take a client to an apartment, and if the first impression is not good, the deal is off. That's how simple it is. So these are a few things which you have to know. One last point I'd like to touch on before I wrap up this small video is that if you are living overseas, then you have to see if there is a way to sign the agreement. If you have already set a power of attorney document, if you have already assigned the job of signing on your behalf by appointing a power of attorney, then you're okay. But if you haven't, you need to do that first, then put the apartment out in the market. Do not make the mistake of putting the apartment out in the market, making the real estate agents work, bringing the client in, and then working on a power of attorney. That can spoil things. You have to make sure your paperwork is in order before the property enters the market. If you're living overseas, be in touch with your real estate agent, get everything clarified. You don't want any mistakes to happen once the client comes in. That's not good. So for property owners who are living overseas, this is really serious because you are living overseas and you're very scared. You don't know what kind of people are going into the apartment. You have less control, and this can be really worrying. And because of this worry, don't mix up the payment terms. Don't say I'm living overseas, so therefore I need 3 months refundable deposit. No. Agreement will cover the relevant points. Keep contact with your real estate agent and have your paperwork sorted out. Have a trustworthy person on the ground here, even if you are overseas. That is important. If there are any other things which you think I have missed out on, please comment below. Don't forget to like and share this video with other property owners you know. And if there are any videos which you want us to make or which you want me to comment on or talk about, please do comment and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again in another video. Bye.